call her Yahweh by Shem Yahushua, call her Yahweh by Shem Yahushua, call her Yahweh by Shem Yahushua Mashiach. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh in the name of Son Yahushua, call her Yahweh by Shem Yahushua Mashiach. Fisherman of Zion, coming back with another video through the spirit and the power of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua Mashiach. Yahweh, who we understand as our power, the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, our Most High God, Yahweh, in the name of His Son, Yahweh Shah, who the world understands as Jesus the Christ. Coming back with another video. Don't count this as a light thing to do. Peace and blessings. And most high willing, you had a mighty Shabbat. Those that kept the Sabbath, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, which the sun has already fully went down yet. And to those that tune in, Lord willing, you still enduring, forsaking the flesh and the cares of this world to the best of your ability. Peace and blessings to you. And the leaders and the elders in Israel, peace and blessings to you and other congregations. Peace and blessings. Lord willing, y'all continue to stand 10 toes down for the Most High, standing stiffly for the ministry, for the law, statute, commandments, and being a good witness unto those that will learn and hear. And I believe I titled this "The Woman with the Issue of Blood." 12 years. The woman with the issue of blood. 12 years. Faith and endurance. Now let me get this quick precept right quick in 2 Timothy. Chapter 3. This is 2 Timothy chapter 3. And I'm going to start at verse 14, and it reads. It says, "But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them." So we got to be assured of what we are learning through the spirit and the power of the Most High. We got to be assured that what we are learning, is of the truth. It's sound doctrine. It's of the righteousness of the Most High. Reading on, verse 16. Verse 15, 2 Timothy 3 and 15. And that from a child that has been known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Hamashiach Yahushua. Verse 16, all scripture is given by inspiration of Most High God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction, in righteousness. So just like this lesson, you know, it's a way to be able to, not only just for women, but also for us men to be able to look at, many different things and be inspired by it, because it's important to have faith, especially in these last days. It's important to understand that without faith, it's impossible to please the Most High, as the scriptures say in the book of Hebrews. So this ain't just only for women. This lesson is not only for women, but it's also a deep look into this woman having the issue 12 years, because like the scripture said, let me read this one more time. 2 Timothy 3 and 16. All scripture is given by inspiration of the Most High and is profitable for doctrine. So this lesson is profitable, for men and women, profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. So we all need to be instructed in a righteous sense. We all need to be shown the way to go, because we're still under the curses, for one, without a shadow of a doubt. The so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Many of us, we really don't believe in something unless we see it. We really don't really get inspired unless somebody else do it, unless somebody else shows us the right way to go. So it's always good to be inspired by the Spirit of the Most High. Verse 17, 2 Timothy 3 and 17, that the man of Most High God, not just a physical man, as well as a woman, because we know a woman came from a man, that the man of Most High God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. So this lesson is gonna, Lord willing, is edifying, and Lord willing, it helps us to be able to shine a magnifying glass on something that we can, put our hand towards and bring forth good works. Now, I also wanted to get real quick Proverbs, because this is also going into the law. And if you understand this parable about the Messiah, our Lord and Savior, allowing this woman to be made whole from what we understand a hemorrhage. You know, if you can understand anything about a woman dealing with uh, a long line of uncleanness, you know, bleeding for 12 years. Now we may have never seen nothing like this in our lifetime. You know, we all have different things going on in our lives, or different family backgrounds, or grandmother, grandfather, or aunt, or cousin, or sister might have a disease. And in the scriptures it says this woman had a disease. So you may not have seen somebody with something like this for a long period of time, which in the scriptures, this 12 years represents, um for one, like the scriptures say in Romans chapter 15. Let me get this real quick before I get into it, because this was written for our learning. So you may have been through something for a long period of time. You know, you may have been going through a rough patch in your marriage for 12 years. You may have went through a rough patch financially for 12 years. And this 12 years goes deeper, not just a physical, as well as it's a spiritual. You know, 10, 11, 12. You might have a financial drought for 12 years. You may not have been able to take a vacation. You may have had to work without even having to call out. Some people, they can't even they can't even go out to eat, you know. So this is a deeper look at how this woman overcame, and how she had faith and endured, because we all go through stuff. We all deal with different things in life. You know, some people can't go on a vacation. Some people can't even buy a new set of tires. You know, some people they go through hell in their marriage. They go through hell, you know, with their children, or even children. They might have went 12 years seeing their mother and father just go through it. You know, but let me get this in Romans real quick. This is Romans chapter 15, and I'm gonna start at verse 4. It says, "For whatsoever things were written aforetime, meaning before us, were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope." So what was written before us, not just only this woman that had a hemorrhage issue, you know, a disease, even people, you know, that we read about in the so-called Old Testament. They dealt with a lot of things. They dealt with many things that held them back, you know. So this is going to be a deeper insight on how this woman and the Messiah actually healing this woman. It was more so of her faith, you know. But to shine a light on that, let me read this real quick. This is Deuteronomy chapter 5, because this is going into the law as well. This is Deuteronomy chapter 5, and I'm gonna start at verse 32. I want to get verse 32. Deuteronomy 5 and 32, and it reads, it says, "Ye shall observe to do therefore as the Lord your God had commanded you. Ye shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left." Verse 33, Deuteronomy 5 and 33, "Ye shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God had commanded you, that ye may live, and that it may be well with you, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which ye shall possess." So we supposed to walk in the ways of the Most High. We supposed to walk in what He has set before us. Things we should be doing. It doesn't matter if it was 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. We supposed to continue to walk in that. We supposed to continue to maneuver in what He has set before us. And that's why the scriptures say, "Seek and ye shall find. Knock and He shall open," if you can understand, paraphrasing. And the Most High wants us to seek Him. He wants us to fully dive into with eliminating all the distractions in this world, and really seeing if we're gonna give our heart, our soul, and our mind over to Him, and over to His laws, His statutes, and His commandments, His instructions. Because that's exactly what it goes into when you understand Matthew chapter 22, verse 37, verse 38 and 39. Love the Most High with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. And so that's what we gotta dive into. Let me get another one, because we supposed to be understanding this as a child, and our children supposed to be understanding this. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 6, and I'm gonna start at verse 6, and it reads, it says, "And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart," meaning in your mind. This should be in your mind. "Shall be in thy heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." So that's the whole point of us trying to better ourselves with this time that the Most High has given us. He's not giving us this time to just go to parties and to just do what we want to do. He's giving us this time to get ourselves in the right space, on the right path. Because anything that is worth having, you got to fight for it. You got to fight for it. So this woman that had an issue for 12 years, you don't think she had a fight? If you understand the scriptures and if you understand the law, this woman was, for one, and I got a list of things that I want to talk about, because this is very deep. And women go through a lot, and we're gonna talk about many things that women go through, because it's not talked about enough. We talk about the men, we talk about all the things the men go through, and it's important to talk about things men go through as well, because that's the foundation. Without men, you really ain't got nothing, because the Most High, He's a man. Yahweh, He's a man. Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, He's a man. The prophets, they are men. Daniel, Noah, Enoch, whomever you want to go to in the scriptures. The Most High allowed a foundation, according to Revelation 21:3, to be backed up by the men. But also women, they go through a lot as well. And if you understand this woman going through and having a hemorrhage issue, a issue of blood, a disease for 12 years, for one, if you know the law, this woman couldn't have sex for 12 years. A lot of women, they would have been breaking all kind of commandments, all type of laws, all type of stuff would have been defiled. The whole city probably had to get shut down, because if you're not fearing the Most High, if you're not moving in the sense back in those days, hey, you was gonna get out of there. You was gonna get put to death. So that woman, she couldn't have sex. If you understand the law, we gonna go through these things, and she couldn't go to those feast days. And these are the same things we should be practicing in this day and age now, because you gotta show forth your light. And if people ask, well, why you didn't come today, or where you been, how what's going on, you gotta go directly to the scriptures, and that's going to open up a doorway to magnify things they may know or things they may not know. So this woman, she wasn't able to have sex for 12 years. She wasn't able to go to feast days for 12 years. So you got to understand that that could have been a lonely, heavy, burdensome life for her. You know, it doesn't really get too deep with it, because it doesn't tell her it doesn't say what tribe she's from. It doesn't say, what her name was. But the Most High wanted us to understand that His miracles, they are still in effect to this day, because more so, it's not just Him doing this miracle. It's more so of this woman's faith. If you had to go 12 years with no pleasure with your, and it don't say she had a spouse really, but if you got a spirit of the Most High on you, then, like we read earlier, it's the scriptures are good for inspiration. So it doesn't matter if you got a wife or a husband. If you're a man, it doesn't matter if you got a wife. If you're a woman, it doesn't matter if you got a husband. You got to look at this right here, and what we about to go through tonight, and you got to understand, it doesn't matter what you're going through in your marriage. You could be going through something for 12 years or 3 years, and you got to have faith, because without faith, you ain't got nothing. You ain't got nothing. You ain't backed up by nothing. You ain't rooted in the Most High. You're not grounded in the Most High. You're not really firm and strong. You could be a 12 years deep in depth, can't see your way through. Or you may be approaching that 12th year, or you may be in debt for 2 years or 6 years, or ever how long, but you can't lose faith, and you got to endure it until the end, you know. So let me get this real quick in Psalms, because you got to keep the commandments, regardless of what you're going through or how much you're suffering. You gonna see that this woman, she continued to keep the commandments, because nobody brought an ill name about her for defiling, any temples, or defiling anybody else, because she had to be isolated, because that's the whole purpose of the Most High healing her and making her whole. She was able to go back and live an ordinary life, because during that time, You couldn't just be around anybody. You couldn't just do anything. If you was found with blood on you or some type of discharge or anything like that, according to Leviticus and Deuteronomy and things like that, Leviticus 12, Leviticus 15, and many of these laws that we're going to read about and touch on, it's a lot of things that had to be brought into perspective, or else you was going to show that you wasn't a believer. You was going to show that you didn't keep the commandments, you didn't keep the laws, and you wasn't upholding that. So this is Psalms chapter 119. I want to get this real quick. Psalms chapter 119, and I'm gonna start at verse 9, and it reads, it says, "Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto, according to thy word." And even a woman, she can apply this to herself as well, because you can cleanse your ways not only physically, but you can cleanse your ways spiritually as well by taking heed to what the Most High put in here for us to follow. But a lot of people, they wanna follow the TikTok trends, they want to follow the Instagram trends, they want to follow social media trends, but don't realize that the real ultimate trend is in the scriptures, is in the Holy Bible for us to follow, and it's never going to fade. And all these other trends and all of these other things that go viral, it's kind of here today and it's going tomorrow. But when you read the scriptures and you lock this in your life and your lifestyle and everything that it is that you're doing, you're going to cleanse your ways physically and spiritually. Verse 10, Psalms 119 and verse 10, with my whole heart have I sought thee. So this woman, she sought the Most High. She didn't care about who was going to say something to her, because I'm pretty sure, and this is not written, but I'm pretty sure, just based on the Holy Spirit and wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and discernment, this woman was well aware that other people knew she was unclean. So her going out to touch the Messiah and want to be made whole, that first of all, that was put her in a position where she either was going to be jammed up, or she knew the Most High was going to make things work for her. You know, but you can't let people stop you. You can't let somebody alter or dictate your faith. And that's where a lot of people fall at. When you go to 1 Timothy 4, you got people falling out of the faith because they may hold somebody in the high regards and a high statue, that if they say something to them, that may bring their spirit down. And I believe that's what precept is that? I believe that's, let me see, that's in the Gospels, I want to say. It might be in Timothy, because some people have caused other people to lose faith. What precept is that? I think I read it earlier. Some people have caused other people to jam up their faith. I'm gonna have to find this precept. I believe it's in Timothy. This is Second Timothy, real quick. Because this woman, I'm pretty sure she was well aware other people knew that she was unclean and that she needed to be set apart. So that could put her life in danger by trying to go out and touch the garment of the Lord. Now, this is 2 Timothy chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 18, and it reads, it says, I'm going to start at verse 16, 2 Timothy 2:16. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness, and their word will eat as do a canker, of whom is Hymenaeus and Philistus, who concerning the truth have erred, saying that the resurrection is past already, and overthrew the faith of some. Now, those men did overthrow people by saying the resurrection already took place when it hasn't already. But I'm using that to show you that some people can cause you to lose faith and can cause you to err. You might have been you might have been 12 years deep in depth, and somebody might just say, well, you know what, you need to just give it up. Next thing you know, if you really take heed to that, you gonna lose faith. And if you lose faith, you lose a lot. And you don't want to do that. You gotta protect your faith, and you gotta endure. But and like the scriptures say, These men have caused people to lose faith and had caused people to stumble. Somebody might have said, somebody might have told you, hey, hey, you might need to leave that woman, because hey, it ain't gonna work for you. It's gonna kill you. Or somebody might have told a woman, you might need to leave that man. But before you do all of that, you gotta have faith in the Most High. You got to, because you can't put your faith and trust in man. Because the Most High said, "Cursed be the man that make it flesh his arm," meaning you making flesh your strength. So you trying to hear and listen to see what people got to say, you know, and it's gonna jam you up every single time. So reading this one more time, 2 Timothy 2 and verse 18, who concerning the truth have erred, saying that the resurrection is past already, and overthrew the faith of some. You see that? And that's what can happen, you know. That's what can happen. Now I want to go straight to this real quick. I want to read this real quick because I don't want to make this too long, but we're not gonna quench the spirit either. So this is Matthew chapter 9. Let's go straight to it, through the spirit and the power of Yahweh Shema Shai. This is Matthew chapter 9, and I'm gonna start at verse 20. And this is also in Mark chapter 5. This is also in Luke chapter 8, with this woman dealing with this issue, and when you look this up in the etymology of this, it's actually telling you that this woman had a disease, and whom on the face of the earth right now deal with this more than the so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And I'm not just talking about having an issue, I'm talking about diseases. Now, if you already know the history and what went on in the 1400s with the so-called Native Americans, the Gadites, the Reubenites, and even with the Issacharites that was over here with us, so-called white men brought diseases over here. Now I'm not saying this woman, I'm not putting this into an analogy of this woman was given a disease, but more so the Most High. Hey, look, even in the scriptures, you got a child being born deaf, and the men of the Lord was asking, say, hey, why was this like this? What did the father and the mother do? And paraphrasing, it was just going into that the Most High was wanting a miracle to be done so he can get the glory. And that's how this thing be played out a lot. The Most High might jam you up just for his name to be magnified. The Most High may give you a disease just so his name could be magnified. Let me see if I can get it real quick. Now, let me see it. I may but I don't want to make this too long. I want to get straight to it. I might have to find this later, but anyways, matter of fact, this is good right here. I'm gonna go ahead and use this. This is Mark chapter 2, and I'm gonna start at Mark chapter 2 and verse 17, and it says, when Yahushua heard it, he said unto them, they that are whole have no need of the physician, but they that are sick, I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Now, this woman, she needed to be whole, and a lot of these diseases and sicknesses that we deal with is spiritual. A lot of people, they try to go to the hospital, they try to go to the emergency room, they try to go to all these top clinics, in Babylon the Great, not knowing that it's a spirit. The Most High is putting a spirit on certain people, and he's the only one that can take these spirits off. He's the one that allowed these spirits to come and deal with us and jam us up, and he's the only one that can take these spirits away. So the Most High said, Yahweh Bashim Abishah said, Mark chapter 2, verse 17, when Yahweh Shah heard it, he said unto them, they that are whole have no need of the physician, but they that are sick, I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. So the Most High is calling us to repent, but you got a lot of people, they trying to figure out how to get rid of AIDS, how to get rid of HIV, They trying to figure out how to get rid of diabetes. You may deal with it for 12 years or longer, you know. But through it all, you still gotta have faith. Because if the Most High take that away from you, let's say the Most High take HIV away from somebody. They had it for 12 years, or they might have had it for 24 years. And all you really want is the Most High to take it away. Some people, like in the days of old, they only wanted that disease to be taken away from them so they can go on by their life and not be bound to that. And whatever it is that might have crippled them, they're gonna go, it's gonna be right back in the same cycle. So if somebody had HIV today and they was seeking the Messiah, trying to touch the hem of his garment to be healed, they might get healed and then go back sleeping and laying around with God's know how long and how many people. But if you got faith, you gotta uphold yourself on a higher level. You gotta abide by his words, his commandments. You gotta do what the scriptures say, and you gotta live a life pleasing unto him. So a lot of people, they in the days of old, they only came around and they only believed based on those miracles. But as soon as them miracles stopped and he didn't show them miracles no more, how many people you think was walking around and trying to hear, his teachings? You know. Now I want to get this precept real quick. I'm trying to get this precept. So we got to understand that this is all about faith. I'm trying to get this precept real quick. Bear with me. I might not be able to find it. So let me get this real quick in Matthew chapter 8. So like in Matthew chapter 9. So let's go to Matthew chapter 9, and I want to start at verse 20. So this is Matthew chapter 9 and verse 20, and it reads, it says, "And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment." So she had a disease, which we understand. What's them people called? People that deal with apothecary, herbalists, and people that put things together and help you deal with your symptoms and overcome your illness. They call it dis-ease, But this woman was dealing with something that a lot of people really wasn't. It wasn't common, you know. So as we see the scriptures call it a disease. So reading it again, Matthew 9 and 20, "And behold, a woman which was diseased with the issue of blood 12 years." And that's a long time to be dealing with that. That's a long time, And this flesh, it doesn't matter how holy and mighty you think you are. It doesn't matter how many precepts, Bible verses you know. It doesn't matter how much you fast and pray. When you in the flesh, because I remember one time back in the day, I had a what was it, a wisdom tooth. Man, that wisdom tooth was killing me. It was killing me. I didn't care how it came out. I was ready for it to get out, and it ain't no telling it ain't no telling how much pain this woman was in for 12 years. And when you lose blood, now, I got children, and I've been around my children just about all their life, besides having to work and dealing with these curses. As soon as they was born, you know. Now, when my wife gave birth, there was a lot of blood that she lost, and not just a lot of blood that she lost, but due to the course of going through her purification. And we're gonna touch on the aspect of a woman dealing with purification as well, going according to the law, meaning you cleansing yourself, because your body got to go through a cycle of healing itself. Because when a woman has a baby, you know, it's a lot of things that her body has to deal with. And not just that, when women have menstrual cycles, it's a lot of things that go into the aspect of a woman's body, and her body cleansing itself, breaking down all type of impurities, all type of uncleanness, because just keeping it PG, because you may never know if children is up here learning as well. Just keeping it PG, a woman has a cavity. So the Most High created a woman body to purify and cleanse itself. So when a woman loses blood, you got to understand, if you never been to the hospital and never had your blown drawn, never had your blood drawn taken and things like that for them to do tests, you probably wouldn't understand. But if you had, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. When you have blood taken out of your body, or um if you were shot, or if you just had some type of illness, you get weak. You get nauseous, you get sick, because you got to have a certain amount of blood in your body, you know. And I believe, um let me see if I put this in the notes. Now, for one, a lot of scribes call it a hemorrhage, and even if you was to go to the doctor, and if this was an issue for somebody to have this in this day and age, they may call it the same thing as well, and it's called a hemorrhage. So it's a rapid, significant escape of blood from damaged blood vessels, either internally within body tissues or externally outside the body. So when this is going on, your body is going through a lot. So you got to deal with pain. You got to deal with other organs and vessels not getting a lot of you know oxygen and things like that in the body. Because when you lose a lot of blood, that can jam up your heart. That can jam up your kidneys. That can mess up your brain. That can mess up a lot of things. And I'm not a doctor or nothing like that. And I don't study anatomy and things with your body, but it's more so the Most High gives you understanding when you deal with your body and your body loses a lot of blood. It's a lot that goes into that. Even if you lose a tooth, because your tooth got veins going to it. Even if you lose a tooth, or even if you pull a tooth out, your whole body is changing. Your body your structures and everything change. And then if you was to step on something on the bottom of your feet, because in the bottom of your feet it has a lot of mechanisms that go to your brain, that go to your kidneys, that go to just about everything in your body. If you was to step on something, you know, and that's why they used to say back in the day, get a technique shot. If you was to step on a rusty nail or something like that, that's going straight to your vessel and all the organs that's attached to your feet. And that's why a lot of people say, allow your feet to touch the earth, because it's going to help. It's going to help your body be revamped, reprogrammed when your feet when you barefooted walking on the earth. Because there's a lot of things that go into how the Most High created our body. But not trying to get too deep into that, but reading on Matthew 9:20. And behold, a woman which was diseased with the issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. And we already read that that are whole need not a physician, you know. So this woman, she wasn't whole. She was dealing with something, you know. She was dealing with something. Verse 22, but Yahweh Shah turned him about, and we understand his name to be Yahweh Shah because according to the Paleo Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew, the Lashon Kadash, it goes into the understanding of he who saves, as we've been taught that his name was Jesus, but we understand the truth now. Matthew 9:22. But Yahweh Shah turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith has made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. So he said her faith had made her whole, which is very, very deep when you understand him. Because in order for her to get to him, she had to have faith on who he is, what he came for, what he's about, and what he taught, she already knew before she got to him. And what does that tell us? Before we go to the doctor, we already gotta know. It doesn't matter what report the doctor gives us, or what report the doctor gives our children, or what report. It don't matter if it's a doctor. It don't matter if it's a lawyer. It don't matter if it's a teacher. It don't matter if it's the law enforcement. It don't matter what report somebody give us. Our faith has to remain on a high level. Let me get Luke real quick. Let's go to Luke chapter 18, because faith is very big. Because the Most High said, when He come back, will He find faith on earth? And a lot of people, they just losing faith because it's been so long. They felt like the Most High forgot about them. You might have asked the Most High to allow you to break through your situation. You may be dealing with financial stress. 12 years, your finances might have been crippled. You might got aches and pains in your body. You might have went everywhere and might have took almost everything you possibly can take. Some people, they got what's them things called? Some people got the old people pill dividers. They divided pills up. Monday you taking this, Tuesday you taking that, Wednesday you taking that, Thursday you took that, Friday you took that, Saturday you took that, and then you come all the way back to Sunday. You might have did that for years on top of years, and you might still be dealing with the same thing. But have you had faith though? Did you go before the Most High and ask Him? Did you open up your mouth? Cause He already know what we want. He already know what we thinking. But it's a difference. Like He told this woman, her faith made her whole. But let's read this in Luke real quick. Luke 18:8. And it reads, it says, I tell you that He will avenge them speedily. Talking about the elect. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall He find faith on the earth. And why would He put that in there? Well, I thought if you a Christian, you got faith automatically. I thought if you was an Israelite, you got faith automatically. But you're gonna realize in these last days, all hell is gonna be breaking loose, and it ain't no different from all hell that broke loose in that woman's life. 12 years with a dis-ease, 12 years of nothing but pain, losing blood. She couldn't sleep with nobody. She couldn't deal with her spouse. And if you're a woman, if you in the flesh, you're gonna be interested in somebody, unless you Yahweh Shah, or unless you Apostle Paul, because them two right there, and other eunuchs that was listed in the scriptures, besides them, hey, we had our mothers and our brothers and our sisters, our ancestors, they was dealing with somebody. This woman, it doesn't give a record on if she was married or not. Do you know how heavy that was for her to be dealing with that? Couldn't deal with a man for 12 years? Because in the law, and we're going to go to it, in the law, you can't deal with a woman when she's bleeding. You can't just be around people. You can't just be, and now it's very convenient. You got Instacart, you got your phone. You kind of go on your phone and you can Instacart and get somebody to bring your groceries to your house. Who's helping this woman get her groceries? Who's helping this woman on feast days? Who's bringing this woman food? How was she able to get food? How was she able to go out and get stuff? So when you looking and when you reading these scriptures and a lot of these things, you can't just skim through it. You got to be in the spirit, because our forefathers and our foremothers, they dealt with a lot. So it don't matter what you're going through. This woman was going through hell for 12 years. And you got young men, young women, they can't contain themselves. They just be hopping from one relationship to the next, sleeping with this person, sleeping with that person. This woman, 12 years, couldn't do that. Not only could she not do that because they had Pharisees and Sadducees at that time, but she had faith. So she believed that how she was moving was going to heal her one day. And you got people, man, I got to get me a woman, man. I'm burning in my flesh. Or you might got a woman say, I got to get me a man. I ain't been touched in years. I ain't been touched. This woman ain't had that. You know, you got puppy love relationships. You got people, they ain't patient, man. When you dealing with the Most High, you got to be patient. Patience is very big. Let me get into James real quick. James chapter 1. You got to be patient. You can't just say, well, it's been 8 years. I've been praying, I've been fasting, I've been seeking the Lord, and I ain't got no answers yet. So like somebody might have won a car. Say, man, I've been working overtime, I've been doing this and that. Man, I should have been had this by now. I should have been had that Rolls Royce. I should have been had that truck. I should have been had that Hellcat. I should have been had that Mercedes Benz. Who said that? Your faith is on the line. Either you got faith or you don't. So let me read this real quick. This is James chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse 3. It says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. You don't think that woman got tempted? I want to go to that feast day today. It's the Passover. I need to go. It's Tabernacles. I got to go. You don't think that woman got tempted? You don't think she seen or heard about a certain man, or, might have been interested in a certain man? But hey, regardless of what you're dealing with, and the same thing she was dealing with, you got to count it all joy. You got to count it all joy. You ain't got no money. You got to count it all joy. Your car messed up. You got to count it all joy. You got diseases in your body. You got to count it all joy. You can't write yourself off. Say, man, it's over. And being in this truth, I done heard a lot of Israelites that dealt with diseases. They wrote themselves off. Man, it is what it is. There ain't no point in fighting no more. I'm gonna be like this till the Lord come back. Well, if that's the case, then count it all joy. But he still can heal you. He still can make your situation kind of turn away. Next thing you know, you're going back to the doctor. I don't see nothing. It's I don't know what to tell you. That cancer is not there anymore. But regardless, if you got it, if you don't got it, you still got to count it all joy. And how many people, if the Most High really took that away from them, how many people would still seek Him and burning in zeal and passion to continue to seek Him? It's a lot of people that, soon as that disease is gone, they probably will wax worse. Or they probably would not read the same. They probably won't pray the same. They probably won't fast the same. But some will, some may not. Now the Most High said, James 1 and 2, my brother, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. Verse 3, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. So this woman's faith was working her patience. And that's what the Most High was telling her. He said, your faith had made you whole. She had to be patient for 12 years. And if you can think about that, and if the spirit of the Most High is working upon you, you can think about Jacob, how he had to wait 7 years before he can deal with the woman that he wanted. He was earnestly desiring his wife. He had to work 7 years for that woman, had to work 7 years before he can get the woman that he was desiring for. And she had to wait 12 years before she can get healed. But we in a society where it's instant, it's quick. I ain't got it right now, so I'm gonna go take out a loan. Next thing you know, you don't took out a loan, and now you ain't got the money to pay that loan, because you gotta pay the note. You gotta pay the car note. You might have took out a loan to get the car. So now you gotta pay that loan back, and you gotta pay the car note, and you gotta pay the insurance. Or you might have took out a loan to try to get the house, and many different things is going on, and you jamming yourself up. When patience was going to help you, all you had to do was be patient. You're trying to go out there and make something happen for yourself, when the whole time the Most High trying to show you something. So this woman was unclean, and dealing with uncleanness, you got to go according to the law. Now, I want to get this in Ezekiel real quick. So this is tapping into the law. This lesson is also magnifying the law as well. Now, let me get this in Proverbs real quick before I go to Ezekiel. Now, this is Proverbs chapter 1. So like Proverbs chapter 4, verse 1, and it reads, it says, "Hear, ye children, the instruction of a father, and attend to no understanding, for I give you good doctrine. Forsake ye not my law." So the Most High does not want us to forsake his law. He does not want us to forsake the understanding that he allows us to have, because that's what comes with the Holy Spirit: knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So we can't forsake the law of the Most High. So let's go to Ezekiel 22, and I want to go to verse 26. Ezekiel chapter 22 and verse 26, and it reads, it says, "Her priests have violated my law," and we don't have a priesthood. A lot of that was taken away from us because our forefathers, they was jamming up not only themselves but a lot of other people. But we do have a high priest in the Messiah now, though. So Ezekiel 22 and 26 says, "Her priests have violated my law and have profaned my holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and profane." Check this out. "Neither have they shewed difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profane among them." So we supposed to know the difference between clean and unclean. And you deal with cleanliness and uncleanliness every day. You got clean things you touch, and you got unclean things you touch. You got clean things you eat. You got unclean things you eat. Let me get another one. Let's go to Ezekiel. Let's stay in Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel 44. Ezekiel chapter 44. And this is what this lesson is about, because this woman that dealt with this disease of bleeding for 12 years. The reason why she went to him, because she knew it was uncleanliness, because she believed in the Most High. She believed in keeping the commandments. She believed in keeping the law. She wasn't dealing with just doing things her own way, you know. So, you know, and I see this ain't the first time, but this is another Shabbat or another teaching that people have comments in the comment section on stuff they dealing with. We also have a Instagram that you can go to our Instagram and tap in with us as well. But Lord willing, we'll be able to do some Q&As to help y'all. But go to the Instagram, Fisherman for Zion, and if you need prayer or whatever you dealing with, you know, after the lesson, Lord willing, we'll go and we'll tap in with the messages, you know. So if you dealing with something, we can tap in, we can pray for you, we can throw up a fast, we can go on a fast for you, especially if you dealing with something, you know. But Lord willing, we can touch on that in time to come. But Ezekiel chapter 44. Ezekiel, because we do love our brothers and our sisters, so-called Black, Spanish, and Native Americans. So what you going through, we all going through it, because we all attached to the body of the Lord. Now this is Ezekiel chapter 44 and verse 23, and it reads, it says, "And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane." The holy is going to separating, being set apart. Profane, dealing with abomination, dealing with fornication, dealing with adultery, dealing with robbery, dealing with something against the commandments, profane, and cause them to discern between the unclean and the clean. So let's read that one more time. Ezekiel 44:23. "And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane, and cause them to discern between the unclean and the clean." So this is also going into what this woman dealt with. She dealt with some uncleanness. If you can understand, And that's what the Most High is showing, because he made that woman whole, meaning he healed her and he allowed her to be cleansed. So I also wanted to get want to make sure I don't leave no stone unturned. Let's get Leviticus real quick, because this is going into the law. You know, let's get Leviticus real quick. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 12. Leviticus chapter 12, and I want to start at verse 6. Trying to make sure I hit every point possible, leave no stone unturned. This is Leviticus chapter 12 and verse 6, and it reads, it says, matter of fact, I'm going to start at verse 4. Leviticus 12 and 4. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 33 days. She shall touch no hollow thing. So this is when a woman has already given birth. Now, the same way, because look, you got to understand, the Messiah knew about this law. The woman knew about this law. The woman that went to touch his garment knew about this law, you know. So she knew she couldn't touch no hollow thing. This ain't nothing new. And this is what we supposed to be teaching our children. And this is what we should be patterning ourselves after. To know the laws of the Most High, the commandments of the Most High, the judgments of the Most High. And if you don't, you're going to jam yourself up and also jam somebody else up as well. So it says she shall touch no hollow things in Leviticus 12 and 4, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. So that woman that was dealing with this issue for 12 years, she couldn't touch no hollow thing. She couldn't go into the sanctuary. And, we're going to touch on other things she couldn't do as well. And she couldn't do that for 12 years. Verse 5, Leviticus 12 and 5. But if she bear a maid child, meaning a boy, so like a girl, because that 33 days was talking about the boy, plus the 7 days, which is 40 days. So verse 5, Leviticus 12 and 5. But if she bear a maid child, then shall then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, which is 14 days, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. So a score is 20. So you got 3 of them, 20, 40, 60. So it says she was supposed to be separated 66 days plus the 14 days, which is 80 days. All right. If she had a girl, but if she had a boy, she had a 33 days plus the 7, which is 40 days. So if you a woman, or if you a man and your woman has gave birth to a boy, she was to be separated for 40 days. But if it was a girl, she was to be separated for 80 days. And that's touching on the law. Now, this woman that we touched on that had an issue, she knew about all of this. And it's our job to study the law and live in the law and apply it to our lives, teach it to our children. And if you a man, your woman got to know this, so she don't defile the sanctuary, so she don't defile the congregation and things like that. Verse 6, Leviticus 12 and 6. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest. Now, we don't do this in this day and age because we don't have a priesthood and we are under curses. The Most High has taken that away from us. So he has stripped us. More so, we deal with the offerings based on the spiritual things we do, separating ourselves, praying, and acknowledging anything that may be abominable, acknowledging anything that may have been wickedness, or anything that may have been of any wrong according to going against the scriptures, going against the commandments, the laws, statutes, and judgments. So, like we understand in Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, you know, we offer up our bodies, we offer up our minds, and like Judges 5:11 says, we rehearse the righteous acts, So that's what we have to deal with. We have to rehearse the righteous acts. Now, keeping the law doesn't make us better than the next man, doesn't make us better than the next woman, or it doesn't make a woman better than the next woman. What it does is showing you what you should be doing and what you automatically are going to be doing in the kingdom. When you read Hebrews 8:8, verse 9, verse 10, and verse 11, and verse 12, the Most High is going to allow us to enter into that new covenant when He brings righteousness back to the earth. So all of this stuff that we're reading about and that we're touching on, we automatically going to be doing that in the kingdom of heaven. It's going to be in our inward parts. It ain't going to be no, oh man, I forgot to cleanse myself. I forgot to separate myself. Ah man, so now I got to go 7 days and separate myself, and then I cause the other person to go 7 days and have to separate themselves because we are unclean. But also keep in mind what we're reading about in Leviticus 12. Mary did that as well. So the mother of our Lord and Savior, of Yahushua HaMashiach the Messiah, she did it as well, because it says in Leviticus 12 and 4, the purifying. Leviticus 12 and 4 one more time. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying. All right. So let's go to Luke chapter 2. And I don't want to read this whole thing, but let's go to Luke chapter 2 and verse 17 in the so-called New Testament. Luke chapter 2 and verse 17. And it reads, and when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning the child. Meaning, when they seen the chariot in the sky, which some people think it's a star and things like that, but it was a chariot. They understood that that was the place, and that was the representation as what the prophet spoke about. Verse 18, Luke 2 and 18. And all they that heard it wondered at those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising Most High God for all the things that Salaki. Salaki. Luke 2 and 20. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising Most High God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them. And when, verse 21, and when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcising of the child, and Mary and Joseph kept the law because they circumcised Yahushua on the 8th day, according to when you read the law in Genesis. Abraham established it in Genesis 17, and it's also in Leviticus 12. When you read Leviticus 12, starting at the top, down to verse 3. So Luke 2 and 21, and when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Yahushua, as you said in English as Jesus, which was so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb. Now check this out. Let's see what Mary did. Verse 22, and when the days of her purification, it says, and when the days of her purification, as we just read in Leviticus 12, because what does purification mean? What does purification mean? Now, when you look this up, it's going into Cartharamas, Rismos, if you can see it. Let me see if I can get it to zoom in. And the Greek word for purification. So it says a cleansing, purification, a ritual purgation or washing. All right. So you would have to go through a certain protocol if you can understand, like how if you can in other words how America dealt with back in the day. If you dealt with the C-19, if you dealt with being sick back in when we had to deal with all of that father madness, so-called pandemic, America had a protocol. If you was found with the virus, you had to be isolated for X amount of days. Then you had to get retested and all that following matters. But thank the Most High, we didn't have to deal with that. He protected us. And we didn't have to get jammed up with all of that sorcery and folly and witchcraft and demonic stuff that he was trying to put in your body. So it's the same thing. You had to separate yourself and you had to be purified for exponential amount of days. So Mary did that. Like this woman that dealt with the issue for 12 years, she knew about the purification, you know. So Luke 2 and 22. And when the days of her purification, according to the law of Moses, were accomplished, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. So after she was cleansed, then she went to Jerusalem. Mary didn't just go to Jerusalem. She didn't just say, well, I was told that this is my son. He's the coming to save the world. No, she kept the law. So what makes anybody else think that they don't got to keep the law? This woman's son was in her arms. She knew he was the saving mechanism of all so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and she still kept the laws, statutes, and commandments. So what makes us think that in this white supremacy world, religious, watered down doctrine, what makes us think that we don't got to keep the commandments? You got to make it make sense. So she kept Leviticus 12 and Leviticus 15. So let's go to Leviticus 15. So Mary, she couldn't say, well, you know what, Joseph, I'm burning. We need to lay down with each other. No, they had to go through a time period, because after your woman give birth to a child, you can't just do what you want to do with your woman. You can't just say, well, you know what, baby, it's been a week. I need you. You can't do that. And you can't just say, baby, I know you bleeding, but hey, look, I got to do what I got to do. I had a long day at work. You my wife, so it is what it is. No, you got to keep the law. It don't matter how you feel. It don't matter what kind of day you had at the job. It don't matter if you stressing out about bills. You got to keep the law. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts. Ain't no way around it. It don't matter if that's your possession. It don't matter if you think you're a mighty man or not. It don't matter how you look at it. You gotta keep the law. You gotta go according to what the Most High written. So this is Leviticus chapter 15. And let's go to verse 19. Mary did it. Mary and Joseph wasn't just doing what they wanted to do. And this woman that had an issue for 12 years, she wasn't doing what she just wanted to do. Because we got faith, right? If you got faith, you ain't just gonna say, hey, you know what? We in captivity. We gotta do what we gotta do. I know you bleeding, but hey, look, it is what it is. You can't be throwing scriptures all out of context, and then you come up with Hebrews 13, talking about marriage is honorable and all. The bed undefiled. The Most High, this is an honorable thing. And now you're trying to, what they call it, entice your woman. Well, I can take my pad off. I'm not trying to get too explicit, but look, we gotta keep the law. You can't say, babe, look, what you want me to do? You want me to get another wife? Stop trying to entice your woman, man. Talking about, you want me to get another wife, and then you trying to use the fact that your woman bleeding to try to throw in the fact you won't get another wife. Abraham didn't do that. Where in the scriptures did it say Abraham, my wife, she's unclean, or she got an issue, even though Sarah didn't have an issue of blood or nothing like that. But I'm just saying, if you're gonna be a man of the Most High, be a man of the Most High. If you're gonna be a woman of the Most High, be a woman of the Most High, and don't entice each other. And keep the law and have faith. Because it ain't just about blood and being unclean. You also got to approach this same aspect when you're dealing with financial problems, when you're dealing with body aches, when you're dealing with body pains, when you're dealing with your child may be sick or your child might got a disease. Don't up and get so swift and quick to do your own thing. You got to pray, got to meditate, You even might have to fast, or you should be fasting. You got to bring the Most High in the presence, and you got to wait on the Most High. You know. So Leviticus 15 and 19. And if a woman have an issue, it's the same thing that we read about in the so-called New Testament when the woman had an issue of blood in Matthew 9 and 20. Also in Mark chapter 5. Also in Luke chapter 8. It says in Leviticus 15 and 19, and if a woman have an issue and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. And whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. See that? So if you touch her, you unclean. Now it's not a sin to be unclean, but you gotta understand. If you love the Most High, if you want to serve the Most High with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, you're gonna approach this with this spirit, you know. Because the Most High said in John 4, let me read it real quick. I don't want to quote it and butcher it, you know. The Most High also said in John chapter 4, this is John chapter 4 and verse 24, and it says, Most High God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So if you're gonna worship the Most High, hey, you worship him in the spirit and worship him in the truth. Here you are, you burning, you say, man, I gotta do what I gotta do. And then you do what you gotta do, and now your spirit gonna be vexed. Now you jamming yourself up, you know. So the Most High said, Leviticus 15 and 19 again. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. And whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. See that? So let's go down to verse 25. Leviticus 15 and 25. And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, and that's what we dealt with. That we read that woman, she dealt with this for 12 years. Or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. So that woman was unclean for 12 years, and she had to be separated for 12 years. You see that? Now, verse 26, and it says, every bed whereon she lieth all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. So nobody can't go and lay on that bed. You can't say, well, you know what, babe, I want to cuddle. And that woman can't say to whomever she with, I miss you, can you come lay with me? If that's the case, you can't go nowhere else. You can't go to camp. You can't congregate. You can't go to no feast days because you're going to be unclean. Every bed whereon she lieth all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. And whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean as the uncleanness of her separation. See that? Verse 27, Leviticus 15 to 27. And whosoever toucheth those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. You see that? Now verse 31. Let's get verse 31. Because if your woman is dealing with blood, if you a man and your woman dealing with blood and you lay down with her, this is what you got to deal with. Verse 31, Leviticus 15 and 31. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness, when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. So you don't want to die in your uncleanness, because you don't know if it's going to be your last day. You don't know if the Most High going to judge you. You don't know what the case may be. All right. Now, verse 24, Leviticus 15 and 24, it says, and if any man lie with her. What does it mean when it says lie? It means to lay down with that woman and do husband and wife like things, if you can understand, because we got to keep it PG. We don't know who's watching. It might be a young one that just found out about the truth. So it says one more time, Leviticus 15:24, and if any man lie with her, meaning you are in pleasure, you know, if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers. So in the scriptures, when it say her flowers, it's talking about blood, being upon them, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days. You see that? You gotta be set. You gotta be unclean for 7 days. If that blood touch you, 7 days, and all the bed were on, he lieth shall be unclean. So that woman that had an issue for 12 years, she knew that, you know, and it says she had faith. So we know she wasn't trying to jam no man up. We know she wasn't trying to jam no sanctuary up, no congregation up, because she got faith. And if you got faith, you gonna abide by this, and you gonna practice this, and you gonna rehearse this. Straight up. Ain't no way around it. Or else you're gonna be a hypocrite, and most high gonna cut you down. And there ain't no way around it. Now I want to get the other one, because the other one in the other gospel, it kind of give it a different insight. So let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke chapter 8, because it give you a different insight on Mark chapter 5. It give you a different insight on Matthew chapter 9, and it give you a different insight on Luke chapter 8. But I kind of like the one in Luke chapter 8 a little bit more, even though all of them are mighty and the Most High allow His miracles to be done. But when you understand it in Luke, you can understand it and apply it to whatever you dealing with. Like if you dealing with a disease, you might have been searching and finding and going all over the globe trying to get things tested and trying to get things right. Now this is Luke chapter 8 and verse 43, and it reads, it says, and a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians. See that woman, it says she spent all her living upon physicians, trying to get answers, trying to figure out what's going on. Why in the world am I like this? I gotta go to the feast day. I can't be separated for this long. I want to get married like other women in Israel do. I want to have children. I want to do things like other women do. It says she spent all her living amongst physicians. That's heavy. I couldn't imagine my wife dealing with that. I wouldn't want to imagine my wife dealing with that. That's heavy. You know. So Luke 8 and 43 again. And a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which has spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood stopped. Woo! So it said immediately that thing just was healed. That's crazy. It said immediately it was stopped. Hey, the Most High ain't nothing to play with, and we know He can do that right now, even not being on the face of the earth. But we gotta have faith. Let me get this real quick. We gotta have faith, and hey, look, I believe the Most High can do that. I know He can. I don't need to see nothing. I don't need to hear nothing. I know He can do that. I want to get this real quick. I hope I can find this precept. I want to get this real quick, cause you got a lot of people. They doubt. And all it is, they just ain't got faith. That's all it is. They ain't got faith. They just doubt. Dang, man. Let me get this precept. What is precept at? Oh man, I hope I can find this. So like, I want to find this precept real quick. It said immediately her issue was taken away. Dang, man. What is precept at? And I always be looking over it. Can't stand when I be doing that. Let me see where I'm gonna start at. Let me see where I want to start at. This is Matthew chapter 12. Matthew chapter 12. Because a lot of people, it might have been some time before they seen something and heard something, and they just lost faith, you know. But this whole thing is about having patience, you know, which leads up to endurance. So this is Matthew chapter 12 and verse. I'm gonna start at verse 38. Matthew 12 and 38, and it says, "Then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign from thee. But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." So that's all of the signs you need. You don't need to see a man having his ear put back on after Peter done had it sling clean off. You know, you don't need to see the Red Sea parting. You don't need to see the manna coming down from the heavens. You don't need to see Pharaoh getting washed away, you know, and whales just coming back, and sharks and you know, and octopus just flowing back on a balanced level in the sea. You know, you don't need to see 5,000 people being fed with fish and bread. You know, you don't need to see somebody walking on water. What you need to understand is that he overcame. And if you overcome, you're going to be made likened unto him, ye so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. But what you need to understand, or what you need to see, is that you need faith. That's what you need to be seeing. Because if you believe that he rose and he came back, you going to believe in the scriptures, you're going to believe on the commandments, and you're going to believe that you got to walk according to thus said the Lord. You know, that's what you need to see. Because you can't just wait for a sign and say, man, you know, the money ain't in my account, so I ain't going to serve the Lord until it's in there. No, we ain't doing that. We not doing that. We in a time right now where we got to have faith. Either you got it or it's lights out. You can't wait. Your wife ain't going to give you no faith. And you as a man, you can't give your wife no faith. It don't matter how mighty of a brother you is. I can't allow another brother. I can't. Me being mighty, me doing videos, me going on the highways and byways, me studying, quoting precepts, remembering precepts, me doing all of this work. I can't put faith in you. You gotta have it. You gotta seek it. You gotta pray for it. You gotta fast for it. You know, or else you gonna jam yourself up. You can't wait, and and say, well, I can't get closer to the Most High until He give me that car, or until He give me that job, or until He give me that woman, or if you're a woman, until He give me that man. You know, I'll believe the Lord when He send me a good man. I ain't seen not one good man yet. You know, all of them, they ain't nothing. You know, so therefore, you got women out here dealing with women. You know, cause they lost faith. You got warlocks and dykes and bull daggers that's laying down with another woman because they lost faith. So having faith is real big. Ain't nothing to play with. And you think I'm gonna lose faith because I ain't got no money, because I got a little bit of money. You think I'm gonna lose faith because my car broke down? That's what's gonna get you out of here. Faith is gonna get you out of here, man. You can say what you want to say about the Israelites. You can say what you want to say about the Israelite camps. You can say what you want to say about people wearing fringes. But you the one back there talking, and you ain't got no faith. When you see them chariots and you see a dark-skinned man open up them clouds and come back on this earth, you gonna be done with, because you spent all your time not trying to increase faith, and you're gonna be jammed up. Let me get this in Romans real quick before we move on. I don't want to make this too much more longer. We're gonna get a couple more before we wind down. This is Romans chapter 10, and I'm gonna start at verse. We also can go to Isaiah too, but I don't want to be all over the place. Now this is Romans chapter 10, and I want to start at verse. Man, I'm gonna start at verse 15. Romans 10 and 15, and it reads. It says, "So like, and how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah, meaning Isaiah, said, Lord, who had believed our report?" Who believed and who didn't believe? Because Isaiah said there was gonna be somebody that didn't believe. Verse 17. So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Most High God. So that woman, she had faith because she heard and she known what the prophet said. So that's how it aligned her up to get to the Messiah to touch his garment. So let me get Sarat real quick. Where did I put my apocrypha at? Let's go to the apocrypha. Now, it wouldn't be a lesson if we didn't go to the apocrypha. Because you gotta have the whole thing from Genesis all the way to Revelation. 80 books. 80 books. That's what we're gonna use. We're gonna use what the Most High gave us. 80 books. So if we don't know who knew. So we got first Edis all the way to second Maccabees. So this is authorized and this is canon. For those that say it's not canon, for you for those that went to the cemetery and was taught white supremacy. And those that was thinking they was doing something, teaching for hire, if you can understand, false prophets, if you can understand, soothsayers, if you can understand, in the demonic cult, if you can understand. But this is Sirach chapter 26, and I'm gonna start at verse 15, and it reads, Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha chapter 26 and verse 15, it says, "A shamed face and faithful woman is a double grace, and her content mind can be so like it says, and her content mind cannot be valued." So if you're a woman that don't want to be seen, don't want attention, you only want to get your attention from your man or from the Most High if you don't have a husband. And if you got faith, the Most High literally just said you a double grace. Now if you're not married, your father, that's a beautiful thing for your father. But if you are married, that's a beautiful thing for your husband. So you brothers out there, y'all, if your woman in the truth and she moving to keep the commandments and to please the Most High and to please that man, y'all gotta start counting y'all blessings. Because I know I do. And I may not tell my wife enough. But I try to make sure I tell her how much of a blessing she is to be in my life. Because she ain't not here disrespecting the ministry, making the ministry look bad. That's a shamefaced woman. If your woman is, and if you got a woman, or if you courting or whatever it is that you're doing as a man to try to, uphold your household in righteousness, or your how about you never shy. If your woman ain't embarrassing you, and if she not embarrassing the ministry, that's a shamefaced woman. So you gotta, and if you're a woman and you're not married, if you haven't embarrassed your father, and if you hadn't embarrassed your father's household, or your house, or your father's bloodline, or even his name, you a shamefaced woman. Or whomever. If your uncle took care of you, or if your grandfather took care of you, or if your adopted father took care of you, whatever it is, according to if he a so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Israelite. If you have not embarrassed him and have not embarrassed the ministry, you are a shamefaced woman, you know, and you're gonna be a double grace, you know. So also, I want to get Sirach 25 and 12. Let's go to 25 and 12 in the same book, Ecclesiastes chapter 25 and verse 12, and it reads, it says, the fear of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shah, is the beginning of his love. So once you start fearing the Lord, you start saying, oh man, I gotta stop watching that. I gotta stop doing this. I gotta stop doing that. I gotta stop doing that. Once you start fearing the Most High, having a sense of respect and honor to the Most High by how you treat your body, and by what you eat, and by what you look at, by what you watch, by what you listen to, you know, that's the big. So like, that's the beginning of love. It says, Sirach 25 and 12. The fear of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shah, is the beginning of his love, and faith is the beginning of cleaving unto him. So having faith is very important. That's cleaving unto the Most High. You know, that's the beginning of cleaving unto him, as it says. You know, now let me get Hebrews real quick. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 11. Because faith is very big. That's one thing that woman had. And we seen by that woman having faith, it healed her. It got her healed. You know. And the deeper insight of this, look, you may not leave this earth, and it's a possibility. We may not leave this earth healed from our elements, you know, our ailments, our illnesses, our infirmities. We may not leave this earth, and we may not have things just cleared up for us. But more so, what the Most High wants us to understand is that he wants us to have faith, you know, because it's not what he do for you that should make you want to do better, but you got to understand who he is and what he's about, you know. So don't base your life off what was taken away from you. Okay, this disease was taken away from me. This wicked person was taken away from me. You know, I'm able to breathe. You know, I had a little bit debt paid off, so I can, I can stretch my money a little bit more. I can help other people out a little bit more. No, you can't base things on what the Most High take away from you, but the more that is put upon you, the more faith you should want. You know, if you can understand what I'm saying. So if you got more pain upon you, you should have more faith. If you got more burdens upon you, you should have more faith. You know. So Hebrews 11 and verse 6, and it reads, it says, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Most High God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Man. And that's what that woman did. She diligently sought, or should I say, sought the Most High. You know, she continued to seek him. 12 years didn't stop her. She continued to seek him. And when he was near her and in her vicinity around her, she took that opportunity. Said, I ain't going another day. I'm going after him right now. Now let me read this one more time, because this is a beautiful, beautiful verse. Hebrews 11 and 6. It says, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that overcometh, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Most High God must believe that he is. And that's what she did. She believed that he is. And that's what you got to believe. You know, believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So you're not gambling, your money tight. You saying, look, I'm a suffer, cause I know he gonna reward me. You ain't gambling, you're not going to no casinos, you're not dealing with no scratch offs, your money bad. You saying, look, hey, if I gotta get another job, I gotta get another job. It is what it is. But I'ma seek him. Your marriage in shambles. You ain't saying, well, look, I'm gonna have to divorce. Because the only way you can divorce is if it's if the woman dealt with some adultery. It don't matter how bad it is. But we also got to make it aware that being that I said that, you want to understand that if it's bad, it is okay to separate, but you can't just go out there and start dealing with other people, because the Most High said you got to seek Him, and then He's going to reward you if you can understand. All right. So let's get Matthew chapter 24. Because you got to endure in this thing. You can't run away from your problems. That woman did not run away from her problems. She didn't take her own life. It's a lot of people that try to take their own life because they dealing with pain. They dealing with 12 years of suffering. They saying they can't go on no more. You can't eliminate yourself and try to escape all of the hell that you're going through. You know, where in the scriptures did the Messiah say, you know what, that cross too much, man? I ain't getting on that cross. I ain't doing that. You know what? There ain't no way. Ain't nowhere in the scriptures Yahweh Shah said that. He didn't say, man, it's too much. I don't have to deal with this. He endured. So faith with endurance is gonna get you to the kingdom. You know. So this is Matthew chapter 24 and verse 13, and it says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. You see that? And you can't quit until the end get here. When the end get here, then that's when you wait to see if you're gonna have a crown or not. All right. So let's go to Galatians, and then we're gonna close this thing out. Now this is Galatians. Lord willing, this was edifying to you. So hey, you gotta understand the law, and you gotta observe and move in the sense and the fashion of the law, statute, commandments. Now this is Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9, and it says, and let us not be weary in well doing. Hey, look, you keeping the commandments, you kept the Shabbat, you keeping the Sabbath days, you keeping the feast days, you trying to get better at loving your brothers and sisters. For those that are still dealing with that, because that's one of the worst. Matter of fact, I'm not gonna say one of the worst. That's one of the hardest things you might have to do. Trying to love somebody that don't love you, or trying to be at good sides with somebody that ain't on the good side with you. Because the Most High said, love your neighbor as yourself. So we do struggle with that as so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. But this is the thing: Galatians 6 and 9, and let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season, not on our own time, not when we want to say it's time. It says, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. You see that? It says, if we faint not. So we don't want to be the ones that faint. You don't want to be the one that faint. You don't want to be the one that gave up because you felt like it was too hard for you. What you should be doing is saying, man, you know what? The Most High could allow this to happen to anybody else, but He allowed it to happen to me. So you know what? He sees something in me that I don't see in myself. And I know, according to His word, that He will only allow this to happen to me if He saw fit for me to overcome. Hey, ain't no way around it. We got the Holy Spirit, we got wisdom, we got knowledge, we got understanding, we got the Most High, we got the angels. Ain't no way around it. Ain't no way around it. You going through it because the Most High know you can overcome it. Ain't no way around it. He allowed that woman to go through it 12 years, man. 12 years. You gotta stop playing with the Most High. He allowed that woman to go through an issue for 12 years because he knew she can overcome. Can't no amount of money hold you back. Can't no disease hold you back. Can't no family problems hold you back. Can't no marriage problem hold you back. Can't nobody aches and pains hold you back. Can't no hating. Can't no lies, no rumors, nothing nobody do hold you back. The Most High allow you to go through that because He know you can overcome it. He made you strong. And who else gonna deal with this? The so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Because the Most High is nigh unto us. So let me read this one more time. Galatians 6 and 9. And let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith, especially to them who believe in Yahweh Shai, who believe in Yahweh. So Lord willing, this was edifying to you. We don't count this as a light thing to do. Fisherman for Zion back with another video. All praises, glory, honor to Yahweh in the name of his son Yahweh Shai. This is Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 3. And it reads, it says, thou will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusted in thee. That woman trusted in Yahweh Shai. That woman trusted in Yahweh. So what you gonna do? You gonna trust in him, or you gonna put your own trust in your own self? You can't do that.